welcome to a terminated healthcare hero story today. On YouTube, I am Miss Jackson, grief content creator, newborn YouTuber. Created the channel to pay tribute to the one who loved me to sanity. So to you, Missy, thank you so much. And to you, the viewer, feel free to check out the description box below. I left a bunch of really awesome relevant links to you if you are grieving at this time, so feel free to check that out. Excuse me, on the description box below. Feel free if you feel so inclined to like, comment, and subscribe after you have gotten some really good knowledge from the channel. So good looking out. I wanted to talk about my very recent, I just got fired. Today is the second Monday where I woke up. I'm currently nursing a twofold transformation at this time. One being the literal grief, which is in and of itself its own beast. And two, this professional breakup. I didn't see it coming. I got this cushion yesterday and I fell in love with it right away because it spoke to me. I thought it was just so visually stunning and reflective of how I'm feeling right now. To be a beautiful butterfly, you must first get through the crawling on your belly caterpillar phase. So I saw it yesterday and I was like, pow, you're coming with me. So it's been about a week since termination. And looking back, I can honestly say that the professional relationship went well until it didn't. Did I see any red flags? No, so long as I was the team's talented designated hitter with no pushback. So long as I was that, I did not see any red flags. So seeing everything in hindsight made me realize one thing and one thing only. I had been selling up my time for cheap money at the hospital. And I'm speaking so bluntly because what the janitor, the social worker, the cook, the physical therapist, the case manager, the nurse, the doctor, bottom line is they don't own their time. And despite their life-saving work that they do, they are not going to out-earn top-paid athletes. Despite this, I wanted to give face for anybody who is a healthcare hero at this time. Simply because despite me not being there and despite me making a conscientious decision that I don't want to go back there, I just have to say, ultimately, anybody who is staffed in a hospital setting is there because they care. And you're working with incredibly difficult cases sometimes, and there is no slack. And so I have to just fully and wholeheartedly acknowledge that anybody in the healthcare setting is there because they care. So regardless, here's what I did and saw after a brief email encounter very recently. On September 7th, I decided to approach work, upper management particularly, about needing work-life balance, particularly needing to support my grieving process at this time. I outlined some anxiety symptoms that I'm attributing to anxiety but are really aggravating my complicated grief. Things like working in close proximity to colleagues really set me off. I really despised hearing endless notifications on cell phones going on for either text messages or just notifications, because at the hospital we all have to be very reachable, but I just despised the sound of the phone going off all the time. Another thing that was setting me off was the PA disrupting me with calling and canceling code blues that were going off and on when I was in the middle of very important calls with the patients. And I had been working from home for some time, so my intention was to completely be shifted from inpatient work to back to remote work, just because I wasn't hanging very well. And I noticed that in July, which is when I was restaffed back in the hospital, I had a very big problem being told where to be. I didn't like that whatsoever. So on September 8th, I was thanked for advocating for myself, and I was also provided a employee support phone number that I could use to manage my feelings of overwhelm. And I thanked my email replier person, and I said, hey, I'm very appreciative and thankful for this. I didn't know about this. But the problem is I went as far as letting work know, hey, the position makes sense for why you want to keep it inpatient. It's just that it's not working out as well as you hoped. I didn't say it like that, but what I'm trying to convey is I outlined that interventions I was using to meet what they wanted me to go for wasn't quite as fruitful as they were hoping for. So once I outlined that, it went very quiet for about 2 days. And in that time, I wondered, should I broach the subject again? Like, I was like oscillating back and forth with the idea of like re-emailing them about this, just because I was surprised that after such openness and willfulness to continue collaborating, they went silent on me. And it almost felt like a dysfunctional relationship, because I turned and I thought, I came out, I reached out to you like this in this way because I needed your support, and you gave me the wall, you gave me the cold shoulder. So for a while, it just felt like, what the hell? Why does work feel like a dysfunctional relationship for a second? So 2 days passed by. Friday, September 10th, I received an email that states, your last day is the next Friday, September 17th. So I was shocked. And many emotions ran through me. I had to keep a contained face. I remained contained, though I really didn't want to, and I barely could. Once everything was said and done, I was wondering, I've been wanting to leave. So why didn't I? Which is heavy. Why didn't I leave? I didn't want to stay there. I posted my first video on this channel right on August 28th, which was right at the 8th month mark of the death of my loved one. I mention this because right before I posted that video, I booked a 90-minute birth chart reading with the very talented and very accurate badass Danny Santos. And I'm only mentioning him because I was looking for clarity, because I was freaking out. In my inner world, I was saying things that were horrifying me. Like, why is it that right now it feels like I hate what I went to school for? I needed those 90 minutes because I needed to extract knowledge about what is coming next. So around 3 weeks before I got fired, I couldn't deny it anymore that I hated my job. And the only joy I had been finding up until that point was working an overtime shift as a death and bereavement group co-facilitator. It's a long name. And unless I was with this group and serving them, everything that I was doing for work with little colorful language just felt beneath me. It just didn't seem worth my time, and to be honest, I wasn't really all that down with what my upper management wanted, because it had no heart, so it didn't captivate me, I suppose. But more than that, it just wasn't as effective, which is why I didn't like it, because I'm like advocating for what would work better, but it wasn't accepted, so I didn't like the rigidity either. And sometimes it feels like the upper management were pushing more for self-serving metrics. If you ask the community how much they trust their med team, I wouldn't be surprised if you bumped into more people who would tell you that they feel either forgotten, neglected, or misinformed. So yeah, they are working hard, and sure, they do good work. I just wonder, I question what good work, what definition they confine that to, because it seems like we have very clashing ideas of what that means to each other. To ourselves and to each other, rather. But I mentioned Danny's birth chart reading on me because I was referred to him by a very close friend, and I was told that he was just very accurate, and he delivered. He is just as accurate as I was told. He provided me so much clarity because I was falling apart, and I was telling myself things that I never anticipated to hear from myself, which is, I hate what I went to school for. That's not something that I ever anticipated. If anything, I had a obsession or a fascination, if you will, with working in the medical field. I could never be a doctor because I don't have the mind for it. I I just don't. But the way that I got in was because I was providing mental health, which is tied to social sciences. So in that sense, that's how I found my in. But regardless, back to Danny, I wanted to talk to him because I wanted to make sure that I was fully aligned with what's good. And so I needed to be aware of like all of the planetary alignment in my chart, because at this point, I just needed to confirm like, hey, if I'm going to break away from this, I have to make sure that this is worth it. Like, there's a reason for this. I'm not just going to quit this. I couldn't, especially because I walked into that job with so much love. I couldn't just drop it. So I needed to make sense, essentially, of all of the signs of the universe that weren't leaving me alone. Like, hey, there was a minute back there where I saw myself as perfect for this job. And now that I made myself perfect for this job and we're just so perfectly here in this work, it just feels like, oh my God, I don't want it. You know, similar to like JD and Elliot from Scrubs. If anybody remembers that scene when Elliot snuggles up to him on the couch and he reveals in 1 second where he is to break that illusion of perfect love. Blah. It was ugly, but I felt like at that moment I was JD and Elliot, because I never anticipated that the one thing I had so much love for, I would someday want to drop. Indefinitely. Probably. But the point is, I had a big love for this work. But anyway, Danny went on to highlight that it makes perfect sense that I am hating it, or was hating it right as I was about to get fired, was because I'm meant for something else. I'm meant for something greater than the greatness I was already involved with. So near the end of the reading, he pulled out 2 cards, but before he did that, he asked me to pick a number between 1 and 78. And then he did the sum of those 2 numbers, so I wound up with 12, which pointed to the heart. He said, a seat of the heart is also reclaimed by nature, music, dance, and the presence of children and animals. This card encourages us to move past the layers of life's tangles and knots and enter the wild and sacred space center of the self, the most precious throne of the galaxy. The next main card was the death card. Obviously that echoes the death of Missy. There's another compounding great loss that isn't so much a fatality, but it is also greatly weighted. So though it bears no physical death of a body, it is a greater death in some other aspects. So that, plus other things that did occur, has basically made it so that my heart has known great death in this life. Simultaneously, death is pointing me in a different career path. I did not expect to fall in love when death came in. If anything, that was very weird. That was extremely weird. I'm like, how is it that I'm liking doing this even though I'm in great pain? I did start working with the bereavement group before my loved one passed away, but once she did, it just, something changed in me, okay? It's just, something changed in me, and I derived great pleasure from working with bereaved people because I am one. And I understand them. Kind of like with the same connection that you would with a best friend, but like I have competent language, compassion, and presence. So it actually is like a best friend, but better, because I have ways to make you feel better, and it works. So like helping people feel better actually helps me out, because it just does right now. It's a very specific pain that we're meeting each other about, and having to adjust to life without this one very important being in life is nothing easy at all. So hence why I want to make myself indispensable to the bereaved population. Before, I only knew that I adored the medical realm as a job. They've been a great springboard for me. No matter what happens next, like I have to acknowledge that my career was started off in the hospital. At a hospital that I eyed like a hawk, got it. It saw the bursting potential in me and nurtured it to the point where they acknowledged pro-level talent within me. So I grew up there in a way. I had some scathing words for the 3 people that ultimately decided to let me go. My intention was to make their butt cheeks concerned once they thought about me, because I wanted them to, like, I wanted one for me, you know? I wanted one jab in for me. But I decided to keep a bird's eye view on this very adult and professional split, because I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to scream. I didn't even want to call them names, though I wanted to. But in my 5-year plan, I initially thought that, you know, I'd be standing on on an inpatient floor of some elite hospital somewhere, and I guess something was off in that calculation. I wasn't quite seeing myself very accurately in the future, I suppose. But it's a good thing that I'm young-ish, because that means I'll be around for a long time, and we'll be able to walk with other grief walkers and just share in the reality of what it's been like to adjust to life with the greatest pain on earth, which is to lose someone. So to the Trinity that fired me, good looking out, ultimately. That was a really good decision, and with my free time, I have been able to...
I gave my wall a makeover. I made a 3D wall art installation.